welcome back to another episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. For tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time, not so early today. Just a reminder, and we'll get into it in a little bit, a little bit more here in just a moment. My wife is on vacation, so this week is kind of on the rocky side. But hey, nevertheless, do me a favor, folks. If you enjoy this show, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button to my channel. And for the really serious folks out there, hit that bell so that you never miss an episode. Things are happening with the podcast. We are moving along. And I'm hoping to do bigger and better things as I keep going along. All right, first and foremost, where have I been? What's going on? Why am I not podcasting this week? As you know, my wife decided that it was time for vacation. So she went with a friend over to Madrid. She's in Spain, enjoying it. She's sending me pictures and stuff of, things, the sites that she's seeing and whatnot, which means I'm on dad duty, and like actually whole house duty because my mother-in-law lives with us. So I'm helping, keep care of my mother-in-law who's 81, keep care of my son who's 5, get people where they need to go, do my job, be where I need to be on occasion. So there's a lot going on here. So I apologize that you're not getting episodes this week. I was able to kind of squeeze a quick one in right now. And, I'm only going to try to be about 30, 40 minutes here because, again, as soon as I get off here, I'll be rushing to go and do some errands and stuff. So lots of things going on here. Good morning to you, time surfing alien. Appreciate you being here. Let's see. And yes, that's basically true. My wife went to Madrid and all I got was house duty. Basically, that's just the way that, she's out having fun and it's all good. Things should be back to normal next week though. So we don't worry, we'll be back. I wanted to give you some initial thoughts on the 2024 election, specifically as it relates to the Libertarian Party, because I'm a member, an active member. Here's what I said this morning, and it wasn't pretty. I'm reading it now. The same as I skewered the Mises caucus after DC convention, Chase's numbers say only one thing: absolute failure. Some might blame a hostile party, but Chase contributed to that prior to winning the nomination. And libertarians have to earn votes, especially libertarian votes. Whether I agree or not with decisions to vote for someone other than Chase, that's still on the candidate. No, fifth place is not acceptable. And Chase Oliver posted, Harry Brown came in fifth place in 2000. If that's where I land, I'm in good company. So that's what I'm referencing here when I say no. Fifth place is not acceptable. This isn't 2000. It's 24 years later, almost a quarter of a century. We should always do better than last year. And I guess what I really should have said was like last election. But as we move forward, we should always be improving. That's what they say. Compare yourself against your prior self, right? Continuing on. The Green Party's Jill Stein delivered better results, and she was on fewer state ballots. Here in Florida, Chase got fewer votes than Fina, who was running for Senate, as he did in several other states. This isn't to beat up on our candidate. We shouldn't be mean-spirited, but we must have frank conversations. Why did Chase lose so badly? I don't know. I was not involved in his campaign, nor did I put much focus on observation. If the LP survives, conversation for another day, they will need to conduct some serious analysis if they plan to do better during midterms or in 2028. So that's what I said this morning. And we're going to get into that really quickly, and we're going to look at some actual numbers. Because at the end of the day, we got to do better than just, oh, you did bad. Like, what does that even mean? I don't even know. Now, first and foremost, do I regret voting for Chase Oliver? Because you might think, well, he lost, and not only did he lose, but he lost badly. So, DL, do you regret your vote? No, I do not. I don't generally regret things because I try to think them through in the first place. But here's the thing. I don't vote based on who I think will win. Otherwise, I would almost never vote Libertarian. Trump did not earn my vote for many reasons that I listed in episode 363. You can go back and listen. He had 8 years to do so. His first term and the 4 years in between. Given his reputation for not delivering, I also wasn't moved by his promises to the Libertarian Party and the libertarian community at large. Like, they were great promises, free Ross and some of the other things that he said, like ending the Department of Education, dealing with the Fed, I believe, once and for all. But again, he doesn't have a reputation in my mind for delivering. So it's going to take more than just, hey, I'm promising you this while I'm campaigning, which, by the way, I want to point out something. Chase was taken to task by a lot of people for this comment that he made about Ron Paul a while back. And then other people went and pointed out, and they were like, well, he's said some positive things about Chase. And I don't have it pulled up, but we can go dig them up if we have to. There are receipts that are out there. A lot of people came back and their response was, oh, yeah, he's saying that because he's campaigning. And a lot of those same people turned right around and go, oh my God, Trump is going to deliver all this stuff. So if you want to be principled, then you should have the same skepticism of a man who has a record of not delivering on his promises as you do a candidate that you believe might be paying lip service because they're running for office and need your vote. It works the same with all of the candidates. This is one of the things. There are many, many reasons that I would argue with some of the criticism of Chase. That doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve any. That just means that, like the regular voters, all the normies, libertarians are just as bad. They're just as bad in their logic and their thinking. And yeah, I might make some enemies by saying this, but if we're not going to be honest, how the hell are we going to advance liberty? We have to be honest. We have to actually be consistent. So I just wanted to take a moment and point that out. But Trump did not earn my vote. Harris, she didn't even have a platform when she was first selected. But also after that, she didn't earn my vote. Perhaps the Democrats can stop talking to adults like they're children. Remember the Man Enough ad where it's like, I'm man enough to do this. I'm man enough. Like, and then there was an ad that came out and they were talking about, it showed like a woman in a voting booth and her husband was right across from her and they had just walked in. He was like, make sure you vote correctly. I take it back. She was in a voting booth. So let me start back. Let me start over. So the man and the woman walk in and he encourages his wife to vote correctly or something like that. And then she's in the voting booth and she's looking across and there's another woman facing her in her voting booth. And they kind of give each other like this look, kind of like, it's okay. And so then they vote Kamala Harris. And then the woman walks out and the husband's like, did you vote right? And like, these are the kind of ads that were delivered on behalf of the Harris campaign. They literally believe that adults are being prevented, like adult women are being prevented by their husbands from voting their conscience. There's no evidence for it other than, hey, my candidate didn't win. Hey, we didn't elect Hillary, so therefore you hate women. We didn't elect Harris, therefore you don't like women. The polls aren't going in her favor with women, so therefore you have a problem with a woman of color, right? And your husband's a domineering man who tells you who to vote for. Like, I don't even, do these people even have friends that are Republicans? Because I have quite a few, a lot, and I don't know a single person, not a single one, who even strikes me as close to having that kind of relationship with their spouse. Not a single one. I'm not even sure who my own wife voted for. I know she voted. Um, I mean, I have some guesses, because we do talk about things, but she actually hates politics. She doesn't like arguing politics. So she just stays away and she maintains doing real estate stuff. Right. And, so we don't really talk about politics a whole lot. And it's not a relationship issue. It's just that she doesn't care about it. Just drives her like, when I first met her, she was like, "Why do you Americans always argue so much about politics?" And I was like, that's what we do." Like, I didn't know how to answer that. I was like, "But that's just part of who we are." Right? And it seemed kind of out of the ordinary for her to argue politics consistently all the time. And, to me, it's like very normal. So I don't know, even in my own house where my wife, she might have voted for Harris, but I doubt it. But she might have. I don't know. Um, I don't know how she voted. I don't, and I don't frankly care. Like, her vote is her vote, and if it canceled mine out, so to speak, well, then that's the way it works. If I didn't convince her to vote similarly to me, then I guess I've got more work to do. But more importantly, I grew up Republican, and I don't remember anybody having that kind of relationship where, like, the wife had to, like, all the women that I knew that were Republican were just as fervently Republican as their husbands. That's my observation of, I don't know, hundreds of husband and wives that are Republican. That isn't to say there isn't any out there, but I don't think there's a substantial number that it requires having advertisements that tell you it's okay to defy your husbands, right? Like, you can, like, women already know it's a private vote. Women are not dumb. If you're a woman and let's just say, like, you're like over the age of, I don't know, 28, roughly, I'm just kind of guessing. If you're over that age, guess what? You know that your vote is private. You know that you could tell your husband that you voted however you want to tell him and vote differently. This is already understood. You don't need an advertisement telling you. Men don't need an advertisement. And as I said this in one of my prior episodes, there was a woman on the ballot in 2020 and over a million, like 1.5 million people voted for her. Didn't require a single ad that said it's okay if you want to vote for Joe Jorgensen. Not a single one. And I don't know anybody that was like, "Oh, a woman?" Now, there was some criticism of her campaign, like she embraced, this whole grandma routine or something like that. And we're like, I don't know that America is trying to vote for, their first grandma. That seems too nice. We think of grandmas as, the person that gives you more ice cream than you should have, and snacks and cookies and is always, doing nice things for you. That's how we think of grandmas. So it doesn't really translate well into politics. So there was criticism on, like, hey, should you have taken that angle? And that's fair. But I don't know anybody that didn't vote for her because she was a woman. And I think the same thing applies to Hillary Clinton. People didn't just not vote for her because she wasn't a woman. It's just a lazy excuse by people that, honestly, it's a soft bigotry of low expectations. Like, they don't believe that a woman could be held to the same standard as a man. So then they reach for, oh, well, you must not have voted because you hate women or you hate people of color. It's all gibberish. So the Democrats didn't earn my vote. And I've voted in the past, not for president, but I have voted for Democrats in the past when I felt that their campaign was motivating to me. And I have done the same for Republicans when their campaign was motivating to me. Right. So I'm not an explicit, I only vote for libertarians or I don't vote for anybody. That's not how I am. And my circle of friends, yeah, I got a fair circle of friends, and they're not libertarian. They're everything from feminist to hardcore conservatives. So, as far as I'm concerned, Trump didn't earn my vote. Harris didn't earn my vote. Chase did earn my vote, mostly on the virtue of his stated policies. But I did have reservations about his personal positions, particularly on trans issues. I didn't like that, but I set them aside because I was like, well, number one, they're not your stated policy. Like, those are, like, I can distinguish between a stated policy and between, like, what you might consider a personal perspective, right? He was like, well, like, and when I do that, I'm saying, like, when I went to his website and I looked at his campaign policies, trans issues weren't on there. When he talked about, when he led with, he didn't say, hey, I'm going to fight so that children can have, all this, gender hormones and gender therapy and stuff like that. Like he wasn't running on that as an issue. But if people asked him and said, what is your personal, what is your position? He gave his position. The other thing I would like to note, and I think this is very important, it is not within the scope of the president's responsibility. So that was the other reason why I wasn't so worried about it, because I was like, okay, well, it's his personal position. He's not running on it as a platform. So that's okay. And then number two, this isn't in the scope of the federal government. And since it's not, like there's going to be candidates at the federal level who will have positions that I disagree with. Like most every libertarian who voted for Trump has an issue with many of his policies, like his actual policies. They have an issue with that. And they probably have an issue with some of his personal stances, if we were to talk about them. So the idea that I should ditch Chase because of that, well, okay, if you're going to make that argument, again, to be consistent, libertarians, you need to do the same yourself. So you can't really come at me over that. But again, it was mostly his stated policies. And he wasn't even my first choice at convention. Now you might ask, and I like this question. I like this comment here. Harris never answered a single question. She really didn't. I mean, we made fun of her all over the internet for unburdened by what has been and what will not become, or I don't know, whatever, right? Like, and her answers were gibberish. In fact, I think there's a Dave Smith video where he walks through some of her, when she finally went out and did some interviews, and he walks through and he's like, all right, here's the question, listen to her answer. And you hear it. And then he points out, he's like, she's not saying anything. Like she's using words, but she's not really answering the question. It's not like, hey, what are you going to do about immigration? And they're like, well, here's my plan to deal with immigration. First and foremost, here's where I see the problem is, and here's how we address the problem. There wasn't any of that. It was just, like, well, we've got to fix it. You know what it reminded me of? There was a video, and I'll, hopefully maybe you can find it. There's a video of Gavin Newsom when he was like mayor, and he was being pressed by the media, and they were like, okay, so you didn't show up to all these scheduled campaign events. So what's up with that? And they obviously said it in a more professional manner, but they asked him like, what's going on with that? And he just dodged those questions. He was like, well, we're really busy. Like, okay, but that's not answering why you weren't at a scheduled event with thousands of people that were expecting you to be there. And they asked him questions like, okay, well, how is it that we reached out to your campaign manager and they didn't even know where you were? And he's like, oh, well, we gotta have better communication. Like he just dodged questions. She did the same thing, but less artfully, like way less artfully. And this is what I mean when people want to go on about like, oh, you didn't support her because she's not a woman. Like if you compare her answers to even other Democrats, they were poor. She did not deliver. She just sounded dumb. I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry. It's not because she's a woman or because she's black or Indian. There are other reasons that maybe she sucked, like her campaigning. That sucked. So yeah, I agree. She didn't answer a single question. She shouldn't have really earned anybody's vote. If I were a Democrat, I would have been pissed that this was my option. I would have been pissed. But like, really, all these people, and you can't find somebody that can at least sound like they're prepared for the job. Whatever, But hey, you guys do you. You keep whining and crying about about how nobody wants to vote for women. Boo hoo hoo. Okay, well, as long as you keep doing that, guess what? You won't be the first one to have a woman president because you are too busy trying to find one that's appealing and going to get past this fake narrative of whether or not people like a woman rather than literally finding a good candidate. Surely in the Democratic Party, there is a woman, several of them, many of them, who could get on the campaign trail and answer questions intelligently. Even if I disagree with them, at least answer them intelligently. In fact, let me draw again upon Dave Smith. When he was on Tom Woods' show, he made the point that if you compare Kamala Harris to Hillary Clinton, while we hated Hillary Clinton's responses, she sounded competent, like she knew what she was talking about. She understood the mechanics of government and the policies that she wanted to implement. She understood them. So, yeah, like, sorry, I didn't mean to go on a tirade, but like she was an awful candidate. I'm sorry. I was having an argument this morning with somebody online, and they're like, "Oh, it's because she was a woman and because she's a person of color." And I'm like, "That's a bunch of gibberish. That's intellectual laziness. Go figure out what she did wrong." I'm over here. I don't want to. I mean, I guess you can call it trashing my own candidate, but I'm like, look, my candidate did poorly. In fact, why am I so critical of Chase? Let's dive into some numbers here. So number one, he came in fifth. Let's put this up on the screen here. Let's show this real quick. So he came in fifth place. Okay, so here's the election results as of sometime this morning. All right, so here we are. He's down here, number five. He got 0.4%, the same as Robert Kennedy, who jumped out of the race. And then Jill Stein. Now, here's some more interesting, like Jill Stein with the Green Party. She's on fewer ballots, state ballots, than the Libertarian Party. Chase was on 47. Okay. Jill, it was unclear, but it appears that there were at least 11 state ballots that she wasn't even on. 11. Chase is on 47. She's on 11. And yet she got 614,000 votes compared to Chase, who got 560,000 votes. That's unacceptable to me. The Green Party itself, as a party, is only on about half the state's ballots in the United States. The Libertarian Party, I believe, we are on almost all of them. I think there's like a couple of states where because of the state rules, we're not actually permitted to be a formal party in the like the Libertarian Party of Florida. I think there's a couple of states, and I don't remember which ones, but that's my understanding, is that there are a few states where people can be libertarians, but they have to like register as like an independent or something like that. So they don't have a formal party, right? But we're on almost all 50, and the Green Party is only on about half, and we got beat. Okay, then we look at Kennedy here, and we see that Kennedy got 594,000 votes versus Chase's 560. Now, Kennedy is on even fewer state ballots. And then on top of that, he urged his supporters, I saw the video, to not vote for him. And he made news by trying to get his name off of some state ballots so that he could send his voters to Donald Trump. So he urged his voters, his supporters, to not vote for him. They did anyway, knowing that he wasn't going to win because he had withdrawn and because he wasn't even on. I don't know how many state ballots he was on, but he wasn't on like half or something like that. He missed the mark quite a bit. The Green Party might have actually been on more state ballots than RFK. I don't know exactly. I forgot to look that up. But the point being, he urged his supporters to not vote for him, tried to withdraw in several state ballots. We had the whole shakeup in Colorado where the LNC secretary went and ensured that Chase was on the Colorado ballot instead of RFK, right? Like, so RFK, he's not like, he was almost at the level of the Green Party. The only difference is he actually has money and he's got name recognition. But again, I go back to, he urged his supporters to not vote for him, and yet we lost to RFK, a guy that effectively decided he was no longer running. And here's the thing: the Libertarian Party is the third largest party in the United States. Now we're far behind the other two. Okay, so it's not like you've got 1, 2, and trailing right behind. There's 3. No, we're significantly behind the big 2. But then after that, I believe you have a nice little dip before you get to the next, which I think is the Green Party, right? Nationally speaking. And so we need to act like it. We need to look like it and act like it. And unfortunately, these numbers don't show that, you know? Here's another picture. So let's see, where did it go? Um, I've got it here. Give me a second. I will show you this picture real quick. Yeah, here it is. So this comes from Todd Hagopian, a former treasurer for the LNC. So it appears that the fundraising, which I didn't know until just recently, like I don't know, it's like a week old. I just don't, I haven't been keeping up that closely, but apparently, the campaign fundraising was extremely low. It was not just the lowest of all time, but it was actually the first time that that the president's campaign fundraising was under $1 million since 1992. Now, I'm a big fan of you do better than you did yesterday. But when yesterday ends up being yesteryear, you really need to do better. So we have to figure out like, okay, what is it that got Oliver? And you can see it on the screen here. He got 0.4 million, right? Joe Jorgensen raised 3.4 million. Gary Johnson in his second run in 2016 was 11.7 million. He got 2.8 million. The election before that in 2012, Barr with 1.4 million. I'm going to mispronounce his name because I never get it right. Badnarik, 1.1 million. Brown, 2.2. Brown, 1.4. And then Moreau, 0.9. So 1992. Right, like that's like it was 1992 when we hit below $1 million, right? And these, as far as I know, these numbers were not adjusted for inflation. But regardless, they're too far apart for inflation to really matter, right? 0.4 million is way far away from even the last election, which a lot of people were unhappy with. A lot of people were unhappy with the Jorgensen campaign, yet she managed to raise 3.4 million. um, the difference between 3.4 million and 0.4 million is not accounted for by inflation. Just not. It's just too far. And when I saw those numbers, I was like, oh, whoa, it's way worse than I realized. I didn't realize it was that bad. Now, a lot of people will just be like, oh, he was a bad candidate. But I don't even know what that means. That's not saying anything. If you want me to hear what you're saying, then you need to come up with a very specific, this is what went wrong with the campaign, right? Beware of anybody that makes lazy assessments. I'm not interested. I don't want to hear, oh, he's gay. He had a picture with a drag queen. Like, I don't think those are the reasons, right? Did they help? Probably not. Are they the reasons that he didn't do so well? I don't think so either. And here's the thing, we can make an argument and say that that Kennedy sucked the air out of the room, right? But that's no excuse. Think of it in this term. Imagine I decide I'm going to start a food truck, and my business does poorly. I cannot later complain that the competition was just too much. There's too many of them, or it was just too tough. I chose to compete, and I have to accept that I did not deliver. Period. At the end of the day, either you deliver or you don't. We live in a country where a lot of people talk about meritocracy. Well, that means you have to deliver. And you have, like, here's the thing. I don't think that there would have been a single candidate we could have put up this year that would have gotten over 1.5%. Probably not more than 1%. And I think we can attribute that to Kennedy, because there is a truth that he was a big name. He took up a lot of the energy that a third party might have otherwise gotten. So I think there is a number somewhere, and I'm placing that number somewhere between 1% and 1.5%. That would have been our cap, whether it had been Rechtenwald, who the Mises Caucus had largely wanted, or maybe even Dave Smith, who they wanted even more. I just don't think that we would have received much more than 1%, and probably not at all over 1.5%. But we're at we're at much lower than that, 0.4%. And more importantly, we basically lost to the Green Party, who is not on many state ballots. So when I look at that, I say, okay, our closest competitor, if you will, outperformed us. That's unacceptable, right? And we should not lose to candidates of competing parties who have less ballot access and who our own candidates have outperformed in the past. So, for example, take a look here. We've got, so I'll put up some numbers here up on the screen. Oops, there we go. So, this is the outcome from the 2016 election. It had Donald Trump in it, Hillary Clinton, very close run. It was very contested, right? Like people were like about as divided as they are, with Kamala Harris and Trump. And you can see that Gary Johnson got 4.5, almost 4.5 million votes. But then look at Jill Stein, right? She got 1.5 million votes. So he basically got about 3 times as much as her. He got about 3 times as many votes as the Green Party. That's what I mean by delay. Like when we start looking at all the different metrics, there are some for which we can say, okay, we're going to offer a little bit of grace, a little bit. But then others we say, no, there is no grace here. Right. And this is the way to identify uh, our mistakes. And I do say our mistakes because if you're part of the party and you actively are trying to build the party, then that's your candidate, whether you like it or not. Right. Like that's the one that gets to carry the flag, if you will. So, and in a sense, this is a team sport, and we win as a team, we lose as a team. So for me, I look at it and I say, well, you performed worse, compared to the Greens in 2016. But then same thing in 2020. So we look over here. All right. And so 2020, Biden, Trump, Jorgensen, Hawkins. Okay. It wasn't Jill Stein this time. But look at Spike, or Joe Jorgensen and Spike. They got 1.8 million votes, and Howie Hawkins got 402,000, right? So that's like almost 4.5. That's roughly around 4.5 times. 4.5 times the vote of the Greens. Now it's still in the 1%, 1.2%. So it's not a great showing. And I don't think that we have enough data to say specifically what that percentage should be because Gary Johnson only got the 3.5 one time. So I think we have to be very careful before we take one instance and then say this is now our standard. It's a good way to look and say, okay, well we got 3.5% once, or I think it was 3.3, but we got 3.3% once. So therefore, that should be our goal from now on. Right. And that's fine as long as we temper it by knowing that was a one-time thing. So, I like to look at trends. What does the trend say? Well, the trend would suggest that number one, we do better than the Green Party. Number two, we get closer to 1%, and period. And so then if we look at this election here, and let's see, that's this one here. So there's that screen. All right. So this is now, so we look here, 0.4, 0.4, 0.4, and then other candidates got 0.2, right? So we're looking at this again. So again, it's 614,000 for Jill Stein, 594,000 for Robert Kennedy, and then in fifth place, Chase Oliver, 560. So that's just unacceptable to me. In fact, and I'm looking at different data. I'm not just relying on just one bit of data. So let's take a look at another image here. This one right here. So this is, so what we're looking at here is the U.S. Senate election here in Florida. So I want you to look. Fina Benoen, the Libertarian candidate, got 53,839 votes, 0.5%. Okay. So 53,800. That's what she got. So now I want you to take a look at what Chase Oliver got in this particular state. Where did that picture go? Is it this one? No, it's not that one. It's this one. There we go. Okay, so here's Chase Oliver now in Florida. In Florida, he got 31,842. So 53,800 compared to 31,800. That's a huge difference. Here's the thing. Our top of the ticket is supposed to be responsible for assisting and bringing attention to down ballot candidates. not the other way around. That's how it, like, I would expect our presidential candidate to get more votes than our Senate candidate or any House candidates. Like, that would be my expectation. And we need to figure out how to make that happen because it did not happen. The down ballot is important because this has been part of the argument that people make when they say, well, we need to run a presidential candidate because states rely on ballot access and yada yada, and they help down ballot candidates. Well, if our top of the ballot candidates are not bringing attention by virtue of our down ballot candidates getting more votes than them, then that whittles away the argument whether we need to have a presidential nominee in the first place. But I would argue that it's not that we don't need it. We need to be more wise in who we choose. Period. We need to be tougher on our candidates. And you might remember, I said a long time ago, I said Chase should be held to a tough standard. We should be rough on him. And it should be the most god awful 6 months of his life. And I even told him I said that because I believe it's true. You're running for office of president. There's literally only one person that can be in that seat, period. One person. And this is like in the entire country gets to be president. We need to put our best forward, right? And that means we need to shape up as a party. Now, right now, today, I'm kind of dogging on Chase, but not specifically. I'm just kind of looking at the numbers and saying, here's where I believe the evidence says you did not do well. You did poorly. Not, hey, we knew you weren't going to win. We knew you might not get more than, 1% or 1.5% because of, RFK or these other, some circumstances that may be fair. No, even when you include those, he still failed. And I know it's hard to hear, like for Chase supporters. And if Chase is tuning in, I'm sorry, man. These are conversations we need to have. And we need to be honest with ourselves because we're over 50 years old and we need to be a better party. We need to have better candidates. We're the party that reads, and some of you guys can recite Robert's Rules of Order like half the book from memory. A lot of you have all kind of campaign strategies that you've worked out over decades. Some of you have read tons and tons of libertarian theory. We're full of political junkies. There's no excuse that we don't have top tier candidates that really give a punch to the big two. There's no reason for it. And in case you're thinking I'm being too mean on him, I've been very critical of presidential candidates since 2020. That's when I first kind of got in and started paying attention. And I was rough. And when it was like before I even hit like my 25th episode, I think it was like in the first few episodes of this podcast, I did a criticism of like 10 of the people that were running for the nomination. And I was kind of tough on them. I was more polite. I was a little bit less rough than I am right now. But maybe that's the problem. Maybe the problem is we're being too kind. And I don't mean to the guys that we don't like, but to the guys we do like. We should be tougher. It should be one of the biggest prizes to say that you were selected, or not selected, but you were nominated. You won the nomination for president, vice president. That should be a crazy honor, not just because, only one person, two people, if you will, can be in those roles, but specifically because we're so tough that we will weed out even good candidates, that we want excellent candidates, not good, excellent. That's what we need to be aiming for. And we need to be tough on our own people. And we need to have heart to hearts and say, look, I love you, brother. I love you, sister. You're not cut out for this role. You need to go back and do some things. You need to run at a lower level. You need to maybe not run at all. And I'm going to be talking about that more hopefully tomorrow, but I don't know. We'll see based on the schedule and how things work out. So let me wind down here. Where does this leave Liberty Dad? I'm still libertarian. I'm not leaving the party. Okay. Now, my time as an officer is winding down. Not angry, just tired. I've been leading Duval here since 2017. So my term for chair ends in March, and I will be stepping down, and hopefully somebody will step up and continue on and do even better things than I did. Okay. But I need a bit of a break. I'm the region rep for the LPF, the Libertarian Party of Florida. That ends in June. I will be stepping down from that. And I will not be taking on any new leadership roles in the party, just because I need a break. That's it. Okay. I just want to take a break from all the responsibilities and just kind of maybe observe more and just kind of see, like, take the experience that I've had and then now spend a little bit more time observing so that I can see. I also have some ideas that how to grow this podcast and become a bigger voice. So I want to focus on that. One of the things that may or may not happen is interviewing libertarian candidates. I have probably done 20 to 30 libertarian candidate interviews. But if I do them in the future, I will be far tougher. All of my past interviews were soft, and most of those interviewees would crumble under serious pushback. And I don't mean that as an insult. I just mean, like, you're not as ready as you think you are. You're not ready to really get out there and impress voters and get them to vote for you and get donors to donate to you. So, like, here's a comment here. Donors went to RFK. Left libs didn't want to support MC led libertarians. Right libertarians didn't want to support lefty candidate. All good and fair. However, there was an argument to be made that if Chase's campaign fundraising was low, what happened to all the libertarians that basically got booted out and were more left leaning, if you will? How come they didn't? Because these were one of the big criticisms was that a lot of donors left the party because they didn't like the takeover. And these were people that were more supportive of left leaning, libertarian candidates. So these were people with money who had been donating to the party. Why didn't they donate to Chase? Why did he not convince them? And there were plenty of people that I saw who were like, yeah, I'm going to vote Harris. Okay, well, great. Apparently, he didn't appeal to people that would have been more aligned with him either. Can't I? It's just the way it is. But back to, if I do interviews in the past or in the future, they're going to be a lot tougher, and I'm probably going to make some people angry. I don't know if I'm going to do them or not, because we need to do better, and we need to be tougher on our candidates. And we need not to cut them any slack, and we need to weed out people that just simply aren't ready. And we're a third party. We are the underdog. We do not have time for anything less than the absolute best. So if in the future I, do some more interviews, they will not be softball, and I will be letting candidates know I'm not trying to bury you, but you might feel like the interview is hostile. You might feel that way, because I want to make sure that if you walk away looking good on my podcast, that you look good because you earned it with zero doubt. So that's where I stand on that. Continue with the show. May or may not do some more episodes this week because I've got so much going on. In fact, I need to wind down so I can get off here and get ready to run a couple errands with my family here. Tomorrow, hopefully, and if not tomorrow, then Friday or Monday, we'll figure this out. I'm going to discuss some ideas on how I think the party ought to operate as a third party underdog. I've been giving this a lot of thought. Now, I'm going to give you a chance. If you haven't seen Dave Smith's interview on Tom Woods, go watch that, because I'm going to be using a number of clips from that to make my point. This is not me coming in to criticize and tell Dave and Tom how wrong they were. I'm hoping to add to the conversation, and I've been really thinking about, okay, some of the ideas that I have in terms of how this party, is organized, and some of the things that, the mistakes that I see that we're making consistently. So hopefully I can kind of ball that all up together, take this Dave and Tom interview and add some good information to it, and then really stretch everybody's thinking. So that's my goal. I'll be trying to do that. I don't know if, again, last time saying this, I don't know if I'll be able to do it tomorrow just because there's so much going on right now with work and family and whatnot. Because I am basically pretending to be a single dad right now, and I haven't quite adjusted to all the things that have to happen yet. So by the time I adjust to them, my wife will be back. So we'll just, we might hold off until next week in the first place. So anyway, so there's that. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. If you're angry, I hope that anger leads you to do better and to demand better, and to really, really take a moment to do some introspection and say, okay, where do we go wrong? What do we need to do? And hopefully the answers are not superficial. Okay. So that superficial answers, they won't give us the best. So if you want the best, you need to start thinking like the best. All right. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, normally, next week at least, 7:30 a.m. for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer, my Rumble channel. You can go to youtube.libertydad.com or rumble.libertydad.com. While you're there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. Last but not least, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. But for now, I'm out.